Hey guys, FilmCrazyAdam here, and welcome back if you've just seen my last review of the top 11 best movies of 2012. Welcome now to the top 11 worst movies of 2012, where we're going to take a look at the 11 worst movies of the last year. Now, going into this review, I'll be the first to tell you that I know there's a couple movies here that people are going to look at me like, what? Really? You didn't like that? You thought it was bad? Now, I ask you just to hold off and watch the review to the end because I think I've got some pretty good points on these movies. But we'll see. Anyway, here's my top 11 worst movies of last year. Number 11, Battleship. This movie was silly and stupid, like most alien summer blockbusters. The plot made no sense, the characters were immature, and the aliens themselves were just stupid. I never really understood if the aliens were scientists or warmongers. They never made it clear. There were just so many stupid plot holes in this movie. Like, I still don't know how we beat them with a 70-year-old museum ship. And why were the aliens even under the ocean? And how did we somehow miss that they were here? And how long have they been here? And why did all this center around Hawaii? And how exactly did we beat them? And how did they not just slaughter everyone with their super advanced technology? And why did they stop slaughtering us when they were killing us with their super advanced technology? Plot holes everywhere, but aside from that, it's still a stupid movie. Even for a summer alien invasion movie. Number 10, The Hunger Games. This is one of those movies I know I'm going to get heat for not liking, but I have good reason. This movie felt so rushed. I don't think there was a single scene in this movie that runs for more than 2 minutes, and consequently, there's no gravity to the situations. We're rushed from scene to scene so fast that we don't really get an understanding of what we just saw or why we saw it. Things happen because, shut up, they do, and we don't have time to explain them. The girl is a better archer than Legolas because she is. The other boy loves her because he does. Things happen because we can't explain it. That being said, this movie's dialogue was about 75% exposition. We're constantly moving from scene to scene, never having time to meet or learn about the characters or understand their situations or learn why things are happening the way they are. I didn't even know there was a love triangle until someone told me a week after I saw the movie. They tried to put too much into this movie and they didn't have enough time to do it in. So this movie makes the bad list because I felt I was watching an abridged movie on fast forward the whole time and ended up not caring about anyone because I never really got to know them. Number 9, The Bourne Legacy. This movie more than anything fails because it is a lie! It's called The Bourne Legacy, but has nothing to do at all with the other 3 Bourne movies. Spoiler alert, we're dealing with super soldiers in this movie. Jeremy Renner plays a super soldier on super steroids and can perform abnormal superhuman feats, like jumping from a height of 30 feet, landing, and walking away like it was nothing. Jason Bourne was a normal human man who couldn't just shrug off a bullet like it was nothing. Renner's character does. We're also dealing with a completely different top-secret branch of the CIA that was never mentioned before, and new people who we've never met or have ever been mentioned before either. What part of this movie is a Bourne movie? The title? Is that all you need to do to make a movie part of a series? On its own, it's not a terrible spy movie, but it wasn't a Bourne movie. And I was constantly distracted during the movie waiting for it to become a Bourne movie and start doing something familiar. I went to see The Bourne Legacy because I wanted to see a Bourne movie. It's like going to a pizza place to eat and getting handed a cheeseburger. Yeah, I like cheeseburgers and all, but where's my damn pepperoni pizza you advertised, you dick? Number 8, Taken 2. The biggest disappointment when it comes to movie expectations. This is the definition of an unnecessary sequel. It's the same movie as the first. It really is. Except not as intricate or as interesting. In this movie, Liam and his wife are taken instead of their daughter. He has some help from his daughter escaping, but in the end, he does the exact same thing as the first movie. There's a lot of hand-waving in this movie too. Things that happen that you're not supposed to question or look too closely at when they do happen. Like how the daughter, who doesn't have her own license, is a better high-speed stunt driver than Liam Neeson. Or how setting off grenades in the middle of Istanbul doesn't seem to bother anyone. No, really, that happens. The daughter is just throwing grenades around and no one cares. I think this movie's biggest failure is that there's no dramatic tension. Right away, you feel that Liam Neeson isn't gonna lose. No matter what these people throw at him, he never even blinks as he outright destroys them. Again. Liam Neeson is like a freaking Terminator in this movie. But like I said, this is basically the same movie as the first, only with a less interesting and not very thought out story. Number 7, Skyfall. Another I know I'm gonna get heat for not liking. But I'll argue that this wasn't even a Bond movie. This movie had so many plot holes, and I know you can argue that about all the Bond movies, but it didn't even feel like a Bond movie. Where was the mission, the Bond girl, and the world domination plan? The main villain in this movie is basically the Joker from Batman. No, seriously. Javier Bardem plays a maniacal psychopath whose only wish is to screw with M and Bond before eventually killing them. He doesn't want riches or even to kill anyone else, just Bond and M. And we don't even see him until halfway through the movie. The way he screws with them is so overcomplicated and so convoluted that it enters ridiculous and passes into ludicrous. And what was the deal with Javier coming on to Bond? And why did this movie try so hard to convey that Bond is old and useless? Unlike every other Bond movie where Bond is showcased as suave and sexy to the point that there isn't a woman on Earth that can resist him. This movie was just screaming, Bond is an old fart. Overall, this movie fails because it wasn't a Bond movie, except in title. Number 6. End of Watch. This was the first ever found footage movie that I was actually interested in seeing in theaters. Why did the execution of this movie have to be so bad? You're led to believe that the video we're seeing is for Jake Gyllenhaal's character's film class, but immediately we start getting all these angles from shaky handheld cameras that aren't there. I mean, there's no one physically there to man them, and yet we're seeing footage from them. There isn't another cameraman with them, so how are we getting this footage? And how are we getting footage from the drug cartel and gang members? When did Jake get their footage to compile it into this movie we're watching? I also had a real problem with the way the officers act when they're not on their beat. I took high school health classes that had more mature kids in them than the cops in this precinct. They acted like freaking juveniles in this movie. Is that really how the LAPD acts? That's kinda disturbing if it is. But the biggest fail of this movie was definitely the camera work. It all falls apart at the end and they just give up pretending it's found footage, but for some reason still keep the handheld aspect. This movie had an okay-ish story, even though the story just kind of wanders aimlessly. But what were they going for with this movie? In the end, it would have made more sense if they just shot it like a normal movie. Number 5. Looper. Time travel movies can be really cool and fun, and then they can be this movie. The trailer doesn't tell you a whole lot of anything except people are sent back in time to get executed in the present. Oh, and our main character meets himself. This could have been really good. Could have been. God, so many plot holes. Where do I begin? What's the deal with people having telekinesis? And evidently there are no rules that govern time travel. You can kill your younger self, but everything your older self did still happened and everyone remembers it. Despite that that's impossible, and you couldn't have because you were killed when you were younger. This whole movie revolves around the concept that I can make up whatever I want in the name of time travel and it's fine and I should just shut up and roll with it. It's bullshit. This movie is one of those that really just wants you to shut up and don't question anything. Sadly, you don't even have to look too close at this movie to see the plot holes. The worst part by far is the last minute of this movie where the ending comes. Deus Ex Machina, anyone? Pay no attention to those plot holes behind the curtain, for I am the great and powerful Looper. Number 4. The Man with the Iron Fists. This movie was just too much. It was one big clusterfuck of everything you've ever heard of ever about ninjas and kung fu. Magic powers, warring clans, star-crossed lovers, ninjas, samurai, an unbeatable enemy, decapitation, explosions, a dark warrior, a mysterious man, crazy bladed weapons, kung fu, fighting, slow-mo, ninja powers, anti-gravity powers, an army of ninjas, etc., etc. This movie had it all and was somehow so boring. It moved around and kept changing the plot so quickly that you never got emotionally invested in any one character or storyline, because there were so damn many of them. I also have a bunch of questions about many different parts of this movie, but like with the J.J. Abrams show, they're replaced and forgotten by even more questions the further along in the movie we go. What was the deal with Russell Crowe's knife? How the hell did the Metal Man get his powers and become the Metal Man? And the title's namesake doesn't even happen until the last 15 minutes of the movie. And I still don't know how the main guy was able to smelt and make iron fists when both of his hands had been cut off. Number 3. Ghost Rider 2. Oh, the pain. This movie was bad, and like the Bourne Legacy, it was a lie! The main character in this movie was not Ghost Rider. Other than the way he looks, he doesn't have the same powers, he doesn't act the same way, he doesn't do what Ghost Rider does. Nothing about this character is that of Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider is the spirit of vengeance that avenges the weak. In this movie, he's a crazed demonic killer and kills anyone and everyone he sees. And Nicolas Cage is by far the worst part of this movie. Now, I'm a huge Ghost Rider fan. He is my all-time favorite Marvel hero. I even like the first Ghost Rider movie, which this movie was supposedly a sequel to. I say supposedly because Wikipedia says it is, but it has absolutely no resemblance to the first movie at all. In fact, it rewrites events and facts from the last movie altogether. This can't be a sequel. It's impossible, just based on the flashback sequence alone. Things in this movie straight up contradict things that were established in the first. I tried really hard to delude myself into thinking that this wasn't half bad, but even I couldn't. This movie hurt me like how the Yankees winning the World Series hurts Boston fans. Number 2, Snow White and the Huntsman. Snow White. Where do I begin with you? Is it the plot holes that are big enough to fly a moon through? Is it the terrible wooden acting of Kristen Stewart? Is it the over-top ridiculous overacting of Charlize Theron? Or is it the outright lie that this movie had anything to do with, let alone be based off of the original story of Snow White? This movie was so bad on so many levels, and it boggles my mind why people say it wasn't bad. Do I need to bring up the fact that she's been locked in a tower for 10 years again? And how does this have anything to do with the story of Snow White? Just because you named one of your characters Snow White doesn't make it the story of Snow White. In what version does the Queen have a brother? Is Snow White locked in a tower for 10 years? Is the Huntsman a main character? Is a dwarf killed off? Does the mirror come out of the mirror? Does Snow White suit up in battle armor and lead a raid on the Queen's castle? What's that? None of them? Screw you, creative license, if you're not going to stick to at least some part of the original story other than the character's name. Number 1, and the crowning jewel on this list, Ridley Scott's Prometheus. This movie is an abomination. This movie is the worst movie I've seen in a long time. A long time. This movie takes a huge steaming crap on science and what it means to be a scientist. This movie is the culmination of everything on this list. It has plot holes. It has bad acting. It has facts that don't make sense. It contradicts itself countless times. It spits in the face of physics while trying to pretend that it's not. Not only that, but it also craps on things like making any kind of sense whatsoever. It's hard to talk about this movie without going into the movie itself and picking out examples. Suffice to say, there isn't a single scene in this movie where you don't just shake your head in sad confusion. And yet, there are people out there who say this is a good movie. What are you people smoking? How is anything about this steaming pile of T-Rex shit good? The worst part about this movie is that it just doesn't make sense. Nothing that is spoken or exposited adds up to make any kind of sense ever at any point in this movie. It is the ultimate failure on this list because it somehow makes less sense than trying to clean used toilet paper. Oh God, so many bad movies. Man, 2012 was rough, especially for movies. You know, it actually took longer to do this list than the good list because, you know, just to narrow it down to just 11 movies took a little bit more time. There was a bunch more movies I wish I could have added onto this list, but whatever. Anyway, there you have it. Film Crazy Adam's top 11 best movies and top 11 worst movies of 2012. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I'm going to get crap for the Bond movie, and I know I'm probably going to get crap for the Hunger Games, and I don't care. See, when I go into a movie and then when I come out with way more questions than I went in with, and you fail to answer most of them, you failed. Anyway, I hope to have a few more reviews coming out. In the meantime, just to hold you over, please check out my blog at FilmCrazyAdam.blogspot.com. Check out what I've got there. I've got a lot of written reviews. Every time I go see a movie, I throw up a written review, so it's not just video reviews, although I am going to try and do more of them. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. This is Film Crazy Adam, signing off.